Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
If you're listening to this podcast, then you're in great company. We've got thousands of listeners who have a thirst for continual improvement and raising standards in business. Whether your interest is in quality, sustainability, or risk standards, I'd love to welcome you as a member to our online platform for all things ISO, the ISOlogy Hub. The ISOlogy Hub is the leading place to get access to all of your online resources, from in-depth training courses through to our very popular coffee break training, to templates and action plans and many other resources to help raise standards. As a member, you get access to over 100 courses, taking you from learner to practitioner to leader. The ISOlogy Hub has all the resources that you need, which will really help to make your life easier and to help improve compliance in those business critical areas. So if you'd like access to learning and compliance resources ranging from data privacy to environmental management, anti-bribery, business continuity, quality, health and safety, to name just but a few, the list is endless actually, then we'd love you to come and join us. Just head over to the isologyhub.com. Hi and welcome to the ISO Show. Well, I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Truss today, who is the Global Sustainability Director at Reed Mackay. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks very much for having me, Mel. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, I'm sure there's a lot that we're going to be talking about today, ranging from Reed Mackay's sustainability report, the multitude of ISO standards that Reed Mackay have achieved over the years, and also, most recently, the verification of Reed Mackay's greenhouse gas emissions to ISO 14064, the leading standard on greenhouse gas emissions reporting. But before we do that, I'll just, for our listeners, give a brief overview on you, Chris, if that's okay. So yeah, an impressive range of experience in the business travel industry, which then obviously has led Chris to be the Global Sustainability Director at Reed Mackay. So Chris has had over 20 years experience working in the travel management sector, and he's now responsible for driving the sustainability agenda at Reed Mackay. So this includes the development of services and solutions that their clients require, consulting with key corporate clients on their own sustainability initiatives, and also managing the wide range of third-party suppliers as well, who add to that capability of business support to, the sustainable travel needs of their clients. So let's get started then, Chris. Before we begin, though, could you tell our listeners something that not many people would know about you?
Yeah, of course, I'd be delighted to. I'm going to be very greedy and give you two things, because I was trying before this podcast to come up with a couple, and the first of those is that I play the folk fiddle and sing in a band, so playing the pubs around Yorkshire where I live, and the other is that I actually play tennis for Yorkshire, albeit only in the over 45s category. So a couple of little snippets for you there. So spend a lot of time up here in the Yorkshire Dales playing tennis or the violin.
Well, I didn't know that about you, Chris. You're a bit of a dark horse, aren't you? Sorry, I've just got to mention for our ISO Show listeners that I actually knew Chris about 20 years ago, and I used to be the quality manager at Reed Mackay. I absolutely loved working for Reed Mackay. They're a fantastic organisation to work for. So that's how I met Chris back in the day. So so you learn something new about people every day. So yeah, that's interesting. Right, and obviously I've given a bit of an overview on your role at Reed Mackay, but could you just provide a bit of an overview on what Reed Mackay actually does for our listeners?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So Reed Mackay are a global travel management and event management business. And simply put, we help our clients to manage their global travel and event management needs, all the way from picking up the telephone and making bookings for our clients, helping them source appropriate venues for their events, and then managing the overall spend, the supply chain, and ultimately reporting back to them on what they've been up to and how they can improve their processes and save money. So we offer a full service in both of those regards. I guess Reed and Mackay in the marketplace are very, very well known for our high quality of service. We tend to specialise in professional services companies and have got a very, very large blue chip client base of whom we're very proud.
Well, before we started this recording, I was reading Reed Mackay's sustainability report, and the achievements are really impressive. Could you just walk me through some of the key highlights, Chris?
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. I think just a bit of background, I picked up responsibility for sustainability at Reed Mackay about 3.5 to 4 years ago. And when I joined, we had a really good pedigree in terms of how we'd been managing sustainability, but it hadn't had the focus we wanted. And really over the past 3.5 to 4 years, our sort of desire has been to ensure that Reed Mackay is absolutely doing everything it can be to be A, operating as a responsible business, but B, able to articulate that. So all of the things that we've been doing since that point have been always with those two things in our visibility. One, how can we operate sustainably? B, how can we articulate that really, really clearly to our clients? So with things like signing up to the United Nations Global Compact and making sure we manage our business in alignment with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, becoming an EcoVadis rated supplier, undertaking our first CDP disclosure, making net zero commitments. All of the things that we've done are through that lens. We've also placed a lot of emphasis on making sure that from an HR perspective that we're doing everything we can to improve our gender pay gap, female representation, that we're supporting the right charitable partnerships. And really that's the beauty of a sustainability report, is that you're able to articulate all of the work that goes on across the business in one place and put your best foot forward. And we found it's a very, very helpful way to articulate to our clients in the wider marketplace what we're about and also where we want to get to. I think anybody that works in sustainability would recognise the fact that, you know, the job is never done ultimately, and there's always something else you can be doing. So, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed reading it, Mel. A bit of bedtime reading yourself. And, but, you know, we're very proud of it, so thank you.
Yeah. Could you just share with us some of the initiatives? For example, you mentioned about the charity, and I know that you're involved with one particular charity in relation to plastics in the ocean, for example. Could you just share a bit of information about that, Chris?
Yeah, so we support 4Ocean. They're a global charity that essentially are engaged in trying to get as much plastic out of the oceans as is possible. We like that for a number of reasons. One, because it's global, and Reed Mackay over the last 10 years has become a truly global business. From a UK start, we're now represented in 13 countries around the globe and partners in many, many other locations. So we wanted a global partnership. The second is that we wanted something that was focused on the environment, or, you know, trying to improve the environment in which we live. We recognise that, you know, the corporate travel industry is one which is highly polluting. And whilst we're not the people actually doing a lot of that pollution, it's the people travelling on board the planes, we are in a position of influence, and we want to take responsibility for that. And that's a lot of the work that we do as a business, is helping to clients to manage and understand that. So we wanted a charity that enabled that. And I think thirdly, we wanted a charity that allowed our employees to get involved. So we're able to give people time out of the office to go and support the charity, to actually engage in the activity. And we find that that's beneficial on many, many levels. Not only gets people out and about out of the office, but also gives them a sense of well-being, and also shows they work for a company that is at least trying to do something to improve the world in which we live.
As you mentioned, you know, the Reed Mackay already had the foundations for good sustainability management practices, and obviously one of the reasons for that is that, you know, the company's been certified to ISO 14001 along with other international standards of best practice. Could you just share with our listeners a bit of an overview of the ISO standards that Reed Mackay is certified to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not an expert on ISO standards, as you would well attest, Mel. But we're certified to ISO 27001, which is information security, ISO 14001, which you've already just mentioned, ISO 22301, which is business continuity, and ISO 9001 quality management. And we've been certified to all of those for over 10 years now, and many of those actually substantially longer than that. And it's that foundation which we've really looked to build on, and we're really proud of all of those.
Yeah, fantastic. Well done. Yeah, that's a great portfolio of international standards for Reed Mackay to be able to demonstrate the extent of the commitment to quality of service delivery to their clients. In terms of all of those standards, obviously, I know that it does take quite a lot of work to manage ISO standards, but the key part of that is really to embed the policies and procedures across the organisation. So employees are empowered to take responsibility for them and it becomes business as usual. But could you just share with us how these standards are typically managed across the business?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said earlier, I'm not the expert within Reed Mackay and ISOs. We actually have a team dedicated to that particular function. And they sit within our security and trust team. So they have other responsibilities alongside those ISO certifications. But the ISOs all form part of our integrated management system, which sit alongside other policies and procedures we have in place for the business, managed by a central team. So, we're a business that has for a very long time taken all of this seriously, and we feel it provides a fantastic foundation for us as an organisation. And it's borne fantastic fruit. I think from a client perspective, they recognise the importance of it. We get a lot of kudos for that. And as I say, we have a team of professionals who know far more about it than I do, making sure we're doing everything we can to be as good as and the best that we can be.
Okay, great. And in terms of looking at greenhouse gas emissions reporting, so clearly we are in a climate emergency right now, and from a regulatory perspective across the globe, there's a greater call for transparency. And there's also been increasing pressure on companies from all different angles, from investors to boards and clients, to share reliable information. So we know that independent assurance is more critical today than it ever has been before. What kind of demands are you starting to see now in the business travel industry in relation to being more transparent and open about reporting your sustainability disclosures and in particular carbon as well?
Well, I mean, it's undeniable the fact that we are receiving more and more requirements and requests from clients with regards to our own operational CO2 footprint, but also for client related emissions as well. And for us, having our own footprint calculated and verified is really important from a credibility perspective and a transparency perspective. Our view is that providing clients with that information is important, and giving them confidence in our mathematics and our calculation methodology and making sure that we are as open as we can be is paramount. I mean, I think all businesses should operate from a position of trust with their clients, and we want our clients to trust us. We certainly, in this particular space, we think that openness and honesty is the best way forward. Nobody is perfect, but the more that we can do to show our clients and disclose what we're up to in a transparent fashion, the better. So we sort of place a great deal of store in making sure we're able to give clients that. And so therefore, to answer the question in a very long-winded way, I suppose, the verification of our GHG emissions and our carbon footprint is really important because it gives it that rubber stamp that gives people the confidence we want them to have in us.
Mm. So what was the main driver behind getting independent verification and in particular to ISO 14064?
I think the driver was twofold. I think we felt as a business that whilst we sort of had a degree of confidence we'd done a good job, we wanted somebody to come in and mark our homework to make sure that we had. And that's purely from an internal perspective, because I think, responsibility starts at home, without being too cheesy about it. And we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing. I think as we get more and more clients asking us for formal disclosures on our carbon footprint, however, then it becomes more and more important to professionalise what we're doing. And if we look at CPD disclosures, for example, or our EcoVadis assessments, or forthcoming legislation like CSRD, we want to make sure we are in the best possible shape to give people the information that they need in a really, really robust and accurate and verified fashion. So I suppose the drive is twofold. One, we wanted to do it because we felt it was the right thing to do, but we also recognise that it's becoming a more and more of a hygiene factor with every year that passes. So we want to be ahead of that curve.
And I know that it can be a challenge to get the data in the first place, to be able to calculate and quantify, an organisation's emissions. What are the challenges that you've encountered along the way, Chris?
I mean, if we're talking about actually going about calculating our carbon footprint, I think just getting hold of the data, the raw data, is the most difficult bit. Although I have to say, it's actually been very enlightening as well. I've actually, I'd say that having gone through that process of having to squirrel away to find the right information to calculate our carbon footprint, that's aided me enormously in terms of understanding, our business better. It's given me really great visibility of where our carbon emissions are coming from and our opportunities to reduce those. But yeah, I think you have to be fairly tenacious. I would say that specifically, access to purchased goods and services data is very, very difficult and granular and challenging. We've taken a spend-based approach to start with because actually getting primary data is so very difficult when you've got a very, very long and large supply chain. But as I say, knowing the right people to go to ask for the right information is the tricky bit. But now that we've got that platform set, it makes our life an enormous amount easier for the future.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I think obviously, year one is going to be the most challenging year, then year two should get easier. And then hopefully, in time, it will become business as usual, that's just part of the day-to-day reporting of the business activities.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you asked our finance team now, where do you get the data to undertake your annual accounts, they'd know exactly where it was immediately, and it's all in a big system. And that's the place you want to get to with your carbon footprint, isn't it? But yeah, from a small acorns, mighty oaks grown, we're getting there slowly, surely.
Yes, yeah. No, I think that the vast majority of organisations are just kind of figuring this out, because obviously there is an influx of regulatory requirements now, as well as client demands and demands from other parties as well, such as investors, just to be really transparent. And I think it is personally, based on our experience, it's a useful exercise to go through, just to understand your supply chain and where you're spending money, and also to look at opportunities for reductions and introducing cost efficiencies as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely echo that. I mean, for us, it's been incredibly helpful just in general on many, many, many layers. As you say, actually, when you look at it in the cold light of day and understand where the emissions come from, that's the point at which you're actually able to start affecting behaviour and changing things for the better, which is ultimately the whole purpose for what we're doing. It's to try to reduce our impact, and you can only do that from a position of knowledge.
Exactly, yeah. So in terms of making a difference then, based on having that knowledge, what kind of difference do you think it's made to the business so far, or what kind of difference do you think it could be making in the future as well?
Well, okay, so from a differential perspective, I mean, I think it's definitely helped just from an internal perspective to give people visibility and an understanding of the impact that they each on an individual basis have on our overall carbon footprint. So, that learning has been massive, and that's really has made a difference to our employees internally and has given us a really, really good launch pad on which to base our forthcoming net zero strategy. I think from an external perspective, the difference that it's given us is a lot more confidence in our processes and in our ability to talk to clients in a way that shows them we know what we're talking about and we understand them as well. So you can have a much more meaningful conversation with a client when you speak from a position of knowledge and understanding than you're able to do prior to that. So I'd say just a general sense of engagement, confidence and awareness has really made a huge difference for us.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So you've highlighted some of the key kind of differentiating factors then. So, from that, what would you say has been the main benefit from the verification part for ISO 14064? So I know you mentioned that obviously there are some drivers like CDP. I'm just looking, to join the dots for our ISO show listeners in terms of where the verification comes in compared to, some of these regulatory requirements. And of course, voluntary standards like CDP.
I think that the most obvious benefit is giving our clients, external stakeholders and our employees confidence in us as a business, in the numbers that we're generating. And that's the sort of the key big tick. But I also think it's given us huge insights into our business and how it operates. And again, the confidence that we know what we're talking about and that we then are able to launch a very, very focused and accurate reduction plan based on real numbers and verified numbers. So, it's that word again, isn't it? But confidence and validation of what we've been doing been very, very helpful.
Yeah, but I think that's what organisations and consumers are actually crying out for, because I think, in terms of anti-greenwashing, that's exactly what organisations need to demonstrate, don't they, in terms of their progress towards net zero. So I think, simply having, an environmental policy statement, say 10 years ago, isn't necessarily going to cut it these days. It's all about providing evidence of action that's been taken and the key results year on year. So it's not just a one-off. And obviously one of the things with verification is it is done every year so that we can identify the progress made and be able to report in a transparent way for all key stakeholders. So if you were to advise somebody on any kind of, tips that you could give them if they were looking to verify their data, what would you say to them, Chris?
The key thing I'd say is just get started. Don't be scared by the process. There really is nothing to be afraid of. And from a personal perspective, we've emerged from the process in a far better position than when we started, just because even the act of having your data verified aids your knowledge and understanding of where the numbers have come from, how you are generating them, where there's opportunity for improvement. It's just a really, really helpful exercise in the round. So I would say just get on with it and don't be worried. I think even the process of going through the verification, if you do come up with something that isn't quite right, that gives you an opportunity to fix it and improve it. And that's the kind of the whole point, isn't it? So yeah, that would be my one bit of advice and my top tip. Just get cracking.
Great advice. Thanks, Chris. So before we go, Chris, I think it'd be really useful for our listeners to understand how Reed Mackay can help organisations with their business travel to be more sustainable, because you could argue that it is quite controversial. You could say that, well, just don't travel, but in business we do need to travel. We need to see people, and there are lots of different reasons why we need to travel for business. So how can Reed Mackay make the difference, whether it's from having a sustainable travel policy or reporting? What type of services do Reed Mackay provide that would help organisations to improve the sustainability of their travel?
Yeah, no problems. So from a Reed Mackay perspective, our ambition is to make sure that clients understand the impact of their choices at every single step of their journey. So we provide visibility of the carbon footprint of every single booking they make as they make it, both in our online booking tool and through our offline consultants, and at every stage on their journey thereafter, be that their itinerary, their travel documentation. We also build into our systems and our architecture approval processes, which can be based on carbon if that's what they want. So for example, if you don't take the lowest carbon option on any particular journey, we can say that has to go to an additional person for approval within your organisation, if that's what the client wants. We also then downstream provide full reporting on all business travel activity and where savings have been missed. So for example, if a client at the end of the year needs to provide to their carbon consultancy their business travel reporting so they can calculate their carbon footprint, we have reports ready to go that provide all of that information in very, very granular detail. But at the same time, we're also able to provide reports which will identify to a client where perhaps their employees haven't taken the lowest carbon option, or have taken a flight where a rail journey exists, or where multiple people from the same firm are travelling to the same location where perhaps they could have sent less people, for example. So we're always trying to make sure that as people make their bookings, report on their bookings, they do so through the visibility and the lens of sustainability as well as cost. Cost is obviously still a huge consideration when people are travelling, but our intention is to make sure that people have visibility of carbon alongside costs, so you can make a fair and balanced decision with both of those factors at play. After that, once the travel's been undertaken, we also then offer our clients additional services, be that the ability to set carbon budgets across their businesses, across their companies, the ability to purchase carbon offsets if that's what they want, or the ability to purchase sustainable aviation fuel direct from the fuel providers. Essentially what I'm saying there is that once the travel's been undertaken, we also give our clients the opportunity to either mitigate for that carbon that's been emitted, or to build plans around how to decarbonise or reduce carbon footprints over a period of time. Just to pick up on one thing you said at the start though, which is, we don't want to tell clients they shouldn't travel. We actually are very upfront to say that the one way that clients can decarbonise their travel programme the most quickly is simply not to get on board the plane. So we're also happy to have that conversation, because for me, to have a really kind of overarching travel programme that's managed sustainably, you need to at the very start say, do you need to travel? If the answer to that question is yes, then how can I travel in the most efficient and sustainable fashion, etc., etc., so that all the way through the booking process and the thought process, you're always considering it. So I think that we've got a very, very strong sort of suite of products and support and advice we provide clients. And, that's one of the things we really try to differentiate on when it comes to our clients. Hope that answered the question, Mel.
It did. It went way above and beyond what I was expecting. But do you know what? That just doesn't surprise me with Reed Mackay, because obviously I'm slightly biased because I did used to work for Reed Mackay many, many years ago. But that was always at the core of the values at Reed Mackay about going above and beyond. I mean, the stories about Reed and Mackay's travel consultants are legendary and what they've done to go above and beyond for their clients. And I'm just absolutely delighted that you're doing exactly the same thing for sustainability now. I mean, I was expecting you to talk about, improved travel programs and this sort of thing and advising on travel policies. But, to go down, the routes to assist clients with their decarbonisation plans and offsetting, etc., and just being able to provide that level of detail on every aspect of their travel is so impressive. And so that's great. In fact, we'll include obviously links to Reed and Mackay and the sustainability report in the show notes. So if anybody is interested in finding out more about Reed and Mackay and their sustainability journey as well, you'll be able to find that information out. But before we go, I'd just like to ask a couple of quick questions. If you could gift a book to somebody, what would it be and why?
And I had a good think about this one, because there's multiple I love reading, but I mean, I would say Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or How to Train Your Dragon or something like that. I figured that most people would
I was going to say, it doesn't have to be sustainability related.
No.
It's no pressure there.
Oh, sorry, this definitely isn't sustainability related. No, but my favourite series of books of all time is a series of books called His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, and they're incredibly deep, thoughtful novels. Northern Lights, The Subtle Night and The Amber Spyglass, and I would recommend those to absolutely anybody. My uncle gave them to me when I was about 25, and I've reread them multiple times, so that'd be my recommendation. Sadly, nothing about sustainability in there, so
That's okay. And finally, what's your favourite quote that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Well, again, I'll be honest with you, I actually had a quick squiz on the internet for a quote that I liked on this one rather than having a favourite one. But I specifically wanted a tennis-themed one in here. So the one I've got is from Steffi Graf. I don't know if you remember Steffi Graf of old, fantastic tennis player.
Yeah.
But she said, you can't measure success if you've never failed. And the reason I've chosen that quote is because it's very, very apt for the subject matter we've just been discussing. If you don't measure and don't understand your carbon footprint, you can't affect it for the better. You can't measure success if you've never failed, I think. sums that up very, very well. So hopefully that ends us on a nice point. And thank you very much for your time, Mel.
It does. It just nicely wraps that up. So thank you very much, Chris. You've been an awesome guest today. Yeah, I really appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you very much.
Bro, cheers.
So that's all from me for now for the ISO show. The links to Reed Mackay and also to Carbonology, if you'd like to find out more about verification to ISO 14064, is in the show notes. So whichever media player you're listening to, you'll be able to get links to those information resources. So thanks once again for listening, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of the ISO show.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.